Good. So we're going to start with you growing up in, where did you grow up?
Oh, all over the place. My dad was in the RAF, so we were shunted about all over the place.
Right.
East Anglia, south of England, Cyprus, Scotland, all over the bloody place.
Did that have an influence on your love of kind of technology and kit and everything?
Oh, yeah, I think it must have done, yeah. Well, and also that, that generation we come from was obsessed with the Battle of Britain and World War. Well, it still is.
Yeah.
Obsessed with the Battle of Britain and World War II. That was, every kid would ask every other kid, what did your dad do in the war and all that stuff. So it was like 5 years after the war, I suppose, when I was born. But it was like, it was ever present. It was still rationing, things like that. It was very austere. So it was like the war hadn't really kind of dealt with itself yet.
Yeah.
We were losing the peace at that time. We'd won the war, but we were in the process of losing the peace, I think, was the thing, wasn't it?
Yeah, I never really, I mean, to me, when I was growing up, I thought it was like, I didn't really, I thought the Second World War seemed like, miles away to me.
Yeah.
It was.
Oh, no, it on one hand, it did. Because later on in life, you'd think, punk was a big thing in your life. And 10 or so years after, punk was kind of over and done with, you're thinking, God, it's longer now since punk happened than since I was born and World War II finished. It's kind of a weird thought, yeah. So, yeah, it was like that. It was kind of history, but it was ever present. And you'd still see, living on RAF stations in the 1950s as a little toddler and that. And your dad would point out the various planes. And some of the planes you'd see were the sort of things they would have been using in World War.
Yeah.
I'm sure you'd see the occasional Spitfire still.
I did an interview with Gary Newman, and of course, everybody knows he's a pilot and everything.
Yeah.
He grew up as a child out by Heathrow, so he was right on the flight path of all the planes coming in. And he acknowledges that obviously had an influence on his love of tech.
Oh yeah, I think I don't think it can fail to.
Yeah.
You'd always be surrounded by these things all the time. You'd be forever with your pals. That's an Ulster or a chipmunk or something like that. So no, it's a different, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then you're living on RAF camps where they've got the V bombers for the quick reaction alert and all that. So you're living a few hundred yards away from V bombers tooled up with nukes, ready to go. Yeah, which you don't really think much about at the time. Your head's still full of the dam busters and the Battle of Britain. You've not really got any concept of the enormity of atomic war at the time. Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, I did a project out on the East Anglian coast, and it was close to Orford Ness, where they had the nuclear bomb housing testing sites and stuff like that. And it's like, what a weird thing that was, just being in that environment and realizing how, it's one thing reading about it in a book or hearing about it on the news at the time, but actually the reality of it all, is something entirely different.
Oh, I know. I remember it was a bit later on in life when I was a teenager, but Peter Watkins' The War Game, the film, there was a book of that, and I'd go into bookshops and was like obsessed and horrified. The film was actually banned. I did eventually get to see it. I think Channel 4 showed it in the 1980s or 1990s when they sort of relinquished the ban. But there was a book about it, an illustrated book, which was the closest you could get to seeing it. And you were sort of fascinated and horrified by the content of this.
Hide under your desk, right?
Yeah, very much. And it was one of them things like, what was the big American one, The Day After or something?
Yeah.
Big American. And Fred's set in Sheffield.
Yeah, say Sheffield. Yeah, that's right in the living daylights out of me.
Oh, me too. No, I made a plan that night. I think with Eugene out of Rezillos, we used to meet up on a Sunday night and go clubbing. So it's shown on a Sunday night threads. And the locations are safe.
Yeah.
Well, it's the neck of the woods I come from anyway. But going up and down, working with the league and stuff like that, catching up with yourself. You're very familiar, obviously, with Sheffield City Centre and council buildings and all that. So there's all these landmarks in there. So the plan was sit and go through this harrowing film, and then just go out and get fucking blotto, which is what we.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So
that's right. It freezes a bit occasionally, does it?
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'm just going to try a different network. 1 second, because there's something messing up here. Hold on. Bear with me. Right, this should be better now, I hope. Okay, so let's move on to how did the Rezillos come about then? You were in a band called the Nuts for Dominators, you said.
Well, the Nuts for Dominators, yeah. Which started out as a kind of, before you got tribute bands.
Yeah.
Well, certainly up in Scotland. Anyway, I suppose it was the same. Well, it was the same all over the country. The thing that kicked off the tribute bands thing was, apart from the Elvis impersonators, were what they used to call rock and roll revival bands.
Yes.
Everyone would dress up like teddy boys, and so you got Shawaddy Waddy out of that, Shanana in America, Fumble, and all these other kind of retro bands. So it started out very much like that, but we do kind of 60s garage kind of stuff as well. So it's rather a mishmash, but it's great fun. We used to have a band at college that serious prog sort of stuff.
Yeah,
and it was we were called Lysander after the Greek hero. Eugene actually played drums in that, so it was named after the Greek hero more than the World War II aeroplane. Although Eugene did this beautiful sort of silhouette picture on his drum kit of a Lysander aircraft, but it looked really good.
That's so prog rock.
Yeah. But you're not named yourself after some, a fighter or a heavy bomber and little reconnaissance aircraft.
Yeah. Well, as some of the titles of those songs from that time then.
Well, in the Nuts for Dominators, I think our one of our best numbers was Crazy Elephant. It was done originally by an American band called Crazy Elephant. What was it called now? Oh God, we actually did a sort of a recording of it. From Atlanta, Georgia. Gimme good loving every day.
Oh, I love
that. Gimme good loving.
Yeah.
We used to love playing that. Yeah, it was a cracker. And stuff like Johnny Be Good. Oh, we used to do the Bee Gees song. Need somebody. The way I love you. Yeah. I love that song. Yeah. So we did that. Just and roll over Beethoven.
Yeah.
The mishmash of early 60s, late 50s. And the Rezillos sort of evolved out of that, really.
Yeah. Are we? I mean, some of the previous people I've interviewed, obviously I'm mentioning Gary Newman, but John Fox, he started doing blues-based kind of famous, with like Lily and stuff like that.
Well, it was quite interesting. I was reading an article, reading something about, watching a documentary about the Sex Pistols, and they started by doing 60s cover versions like Who songs and stuff like that, which I never realised. So everybody must,
of course,
yeah.
So how did moving forward, Rezillos, how did that come about then?
Well, it was really a development of the Nuts for Dominators. I think I remember we were having a Nuts for rehearsal. I think we knew we were going to do something after the Nuts for Dominators kind of. I think we had the name first.
Where did that come
from? It was a comic book. It was the cover of the first, The Shadow, Who Knows What Evil Lurks in the Hearts of Men.
All right, okay.
And there was a big picture of a Shadow on this DC comic cover. He's holding his guns up like that. He's got his mask on and everything, big nose. And in the background is a kind of New York City scene. And there's like a neon sign for, I don't know, a club or a bar or something. And it actually says Rezillos on it.
Oh, yeah.
on this side. And so I think Eugene had the idea of changing the V to a Z. So I was just kind of going along with him, thinking, oh, this will amount to nothing, blah, blah. All right, there you go, we'll do that. So I think it had the name, and then that evolution out of the nuts for dominates. Because, you'd have your serious band, like, nobody fucking interested at all.
Yeah, of course.
And then you'd start doing rock and roll cover versions. Oh, you're the best band in town.
Yeah, exactly. That's what.
So, it was kind of development of that, which we started out for a bit of a laugh, because we still have our serious prog rock band on the side, which was going nowhere.
Can I actually be this cassette of Lysander, please? Well,
yeah. Well, we had the next one we had after that was called Nova Express.
Oh, obviously, quite good, eh?
After the William Burroughs book, Nova Express.
Right, yeah.
And although I don't think I knew it was a William Burroughs book at that time, but
no.
someone came up with it. So yeah, that sounds pretty good.
There's a big science fiction element to the Rezillos, isn't there? It's kind of
I always viewed the Rezillos as just a celebration of popular culture,
yes,
in all its forms: film, music, television. 1970s Top of the Pops with everyone dressed up like fucking idiots, but it was brilliant.
I know. Well, there were quite a few bands around that time who were kind of semi-theatrical, dressy, like Deaf School, people like that, and I suppose rock music came into that.
Well, yeah, I mean, things like obviously Dr. Feelgood, Roxy Music, Johnny Kidd and the Pirates, and a lot of these things were, they were hugely influential, and the Kinks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And with an eye on the Shangri-Las and what have you.
Yeah, and
initially there were 3 girls in the group as well. It had as many as 9 members when everybody pitched up. So you get one night there'd be 5 or 6 of you. Someone would accidentally get left behind because you'd be going in vans and cars to Aberdeen or something, and someone would, and then it would get a bit confused. Did you pick up so and so? No, I thought you were picking her up, and you'd end up at the gig with somebody missing. So you just make the best of it, really. Yeah.
And how did you meet Bob Lest? Tell me about that.
Well, I had a mate called Gavin, who worked in the theatre. And he worked in the Traverse Theatre in Edinburgh for a while. Right. And during he's quite a famous theatre. I was David Bowie's even worked there in his earlier.
Is that right?
Day. Well, I think he did. Did he not work when he worked with Lindsay Kemp? I think they did stuff at the Traverse, mime stuff. More.
Right. Yeah. And you're walking in a high wind. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is where the moon dance came from.
Yeah.
If you've seen a mime show, yeah. But they were a bit short-handed during the festival. So Gavin, my mate, who was stage manager, got me a job as, the lowest of the low stagehand. And during the course of working there, like Bob Last, was the assistant stage manager. So, he was able to lord it over me. And then there was a deputy stage manager. And then above that was Gav, who was the head stage manager. And if you remember Tim Pierce?
Yes, of course I do.
Tim was he did the sound effects and sound and stuff like that. And by the end of my 3 or 4 week stint at the Traverse, I think I'd poached the entire Traverse crew. They used to just pitch up, because we'd be doing the odd rehearsal or gig or something, and you just get like the lighting guy, Ali, a lovely guy. He'd just pitch up at the venue with a couple of lights he'd taken out from the Traverse, and he'd just, off his own back, folk would just get involved in them days. It was everyone just helped.
Well, it's that punk philosophy, wasn't it?
It was kind of really before punk, really. Well, I suppose the punk thing might have been kicking off in London, but it was just that's folk just wanted to be a part. They were happy, just wanted to get involved and be a part of something.
They wanted to be part of our rock and roll vibe.
Yeah, have a bit of a laugh, something a bit different. So you get that, like Tim would pitch up and go, "I'll do your sound." Ali would turn up with some lights and go, "Oh, I've got some lights for you." stuff like that. So
we have the show right here. Yeah,
and then I think Tim was kind of unofficial kind of sound guy, tour manager, roadie. I think they probably were employing him in a slightly more official capacity then. And he said we were a bit short-handed as things began to develop. So he suggested getting Bob in as an extra sort of stagehand. So Bob was sort of like stage roadie and general humper and stuff like that. And Bob, with his kind of go-ahead initiative, before too long, was almost taking over being a tour manager and making a good job of that. And the manager we had at the time, we put out our first record. I think we parted company with him, and we had a sort of crisis meeting actually around at Bob's. And I'd been thinking Bob would actually make a good manager. And I'm thinking, I don't know how the rest of the band will feel about that, but I'm going to moot that idea when we have this sort of crisis meeting. So we're all sat around the table and waiting for Bob's kind of chair. So this time, Bob's chairing the meeting and everything. It's in his gaff and he's chairing the meeting a lot, So and I'm waiting for my moment to moot this idea of what about Bob being the manager? How do you feel about that, Bob? When Faye 5 just piped up, well, we need a manager, Bob, and I think you're it. And I was quite relieved. I thought, oh, thank God, 5. So I seconded that motion immediately, yeah. So that's how Bob sort of became manager.
And how old was he at that point?
I think we were all in sort of early mid-20s, I suppose. I was in my mid-20s by then. Yeah, just finished art. Eugene too. We just finished art college really, this sort of year before.
And so you got assigned to was it Sire? Fine check. And you had a hit straight out of the bag, didn't you? Really, I suppose. I mean, most people build it up over a while, and you just.
In a way, we do. I mean, obviously, we've done the groundwork. I mean, we did something like in our first year of trading, as it were. We did like the best part of 300 gigs in 1 year, which sometimes we did 2 gigs a night, 200 and God knows how many gigs. And we'd be doing like one at lunchtime, one at night, or sometimes one at early evening, another set of gear set up somewhere in another venue, and we'd just bomb from one to the next. Just straight from out the back stage door from one gig, crammed into the back of a van, across to like Dunfermline or somewhere, just to north of Edinburgh, straight in to do another gig. Yes, it was quite edgy.
It's intense, isn't it? Really?
Yeah.
So what were the pressures that led to, I mean, you were doing okay, and of course you very kindly put us on as support when you played.
That's right, the first time.
Camden Palace. What was it?
Yeah.
Can't remember, actually.
It was the Music Machine. Which became the Camden Palace, yeah.
Now, right. And now it's been reconstructed yet again. It's been bought by a hedge fund, I think, by all accounts.
Oh, not bloody hedge funds that destroy everything. Yeah, great. I was watching the documentary about them. We sort of lucked out a bit in the Rezillos. I mean, went to America to record the album. And, that all went pretty well. And we worked with Bob Clearmount, and it pretty much produced it. Well, we had Tony Bon Jovi they had the sort of production team, which was Tony Bon Jovi, who was ill for quite a lot of the time. This guy, Lance Quinn, who did fuck all. I think they just got him in on the credits because he was one of their mates or something. Right. And Bob, who was the engineer, Bob Clearmount. But Bob was doing all the work. And I think the album was going to be credited to production-wise to Tony Bon Jovi. But we really made a big deal about Bob. Bob did the album with us. We never had done it without Bob. We want Bob to have a production credit on that. And lo and behold, he did appear, on the production credits. So we'd like to think that we helped him on his way. He'd have got there anyway. He was brilliant.
He was one of the great
guys. You've met him, I take it, Bob.
I've never met him, but I'm an fan of his work historically.
Yeah, I mean, I think within a few months of us working with him, he was doing something with Bob Dylan, things like that, So you're all delighted to see him doing really well. Exactly, absolutely loved him. We thought he was brilliant. he took no shit either. Either.
So you were called lukewarm, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. Well, that in the days of Cream and Jimi Hendrix and anyone that was a good guitar, red hot, a good guitarist was referred to as red hot. Have you seen that band where so and so playing the guitar?
Oh,
red hot,
right?
I thought, yeah, well, I'll be lukewarm.
I think
I'm not going to claim to be red hot.
Yeah, I can relate to that, definitely. That's brilliant. And then, so we move on to Shake. What was Shake all about? Oh, well, yeah, let's talk about why the Rezillos split up. You said it was more or less your fault, was it?
Well, I suppose, in the words of Ziggy Stardust, that to break up the band in a way.
All right.
I sort of led a rebellion. I'm terrible for joining the rebellion and then getting a bit fed up with it and rebelling against the rebellion. That's usually what I do. But yeah, I mean, I think just you start off all pals from art college and stuff like that, and then all the little niggles set in and things go to people's heads and stuff like that. So yeah, it just started to get a bit ridiculous. So I can't remember the specifics of it, but
bands are a problem with politics. I find.
You have the situation as well of like the two singers were an item. They were going out with each other, so they formed sort of their own clique.
Yeah,
in a way, and then you had myself, Ali and Simon. Ali and Simon, the rhythm section, and I suppose we had ideas of what we'd like to be doing after a while. After it all gets a bit too intense, and folks start throwing strops and all that kind of thing. Yeah,
God, I can do without all that. I decided not.
But that was a big part of Bob's learning process, because, that was the first time he'd experienced that situation. As competent as he was with things, being self-taught as well, I guess. And he said he drew. When the league split up, the original league split up, he said he'd used the experience from the Rezillos split up that he was never happy with the way he angled, because nobody really got the benefit. I mean, they wanted the ones that Faye and Eugene and their Rezillos offshoot. Obviously, they wanted to use the name, and I was under a lot of pressure from their record company. I think it was Din Disc at the time. I can't remember now exactly. Yeah, so I was under pressure from them to give them the name, which would be unheard of in this day and age. Like, it would be a monetary offer, wouldn't it? You'd get. Yeah. But then it was all, go and let them use the name. I'd be, no. I didn't want us to use the name. I wanted to kind of start from scratch again. But nobody really got the benefit of it at the end of the day. So I think when the league split happened, I think Bob realized, I think it's probably Bob's savvy in that he realized that even at that stage, the importance of the brand, which is what it's all about now, isn't it?
Heavily
as tragic as that is, the fucking brand.
Yeah.
But I think he became aware of that brand idea, and the name, as the name of the band or whatever, has value. Yeah. So that it might as well be exploited, in one way or another.
I agree. So then you went on to form Shake. Is that right?
Yeah, Shake. S.H.A.K.E.
What does that stand for then? Go on,
it didn't actually stand for anything, but it meant to sound a bit like the man from Uncle.
Oh, I get it.
But my meaning for what it meant was sounds horrendous and kills everything. Sorry, good. But we used to have Motorhead's Road Crew, and they used to say, "You're even fucking louder than Motorhead."
Oh my God,
which is an accolade. One of my greatest.
That's pretty cool, actually.
One of Motorhead's Road Crew actually said, "You're fucking louder than Motorhead."
Oh my God, that's something. So after that didn't last long. How long does that last?
Yeah, it's sort of. It was always like there was unfinished business there, because there was that period when I don't know if you remember that kind of late 70s going early 80s, record companies I don't know, they had one of their panics, and they were too scared to sign anybody. They were getting afraid of signing anybody, and then obviously Seymour Stein, who was running Sire, Seymour Stein kept us on Sire, And we sort of fulfilled the contractual obligations for the Rezillos in a way.
Right.
So we signed to Sire. What became the Rezillos went their way. They signed to Dindis. And which was Carol, what was her name?
Carol Wilson.
Carol Wilson. So she had, she was Virgin Publishing at the time. And so she had my publishing, had the publishing. So, which I think that remained. But then I think she was put in charge of starting Dindis. Was she?
Yeah, I mean, she
involved in the startup of it as a Virgin subsidiary.
And she signed you, did she? You said you were on at one point.
We were signed for publishing.
Oh, publishing.
I can't remember at that point how much Carol had to do with it, but I remember her setting up being a part of the setup for Dindis. So she signed the Rezillos. I've forgotten what the question was now.
No, it didn't matter. Let's move on to Boots for Dancing.
Oh, Boots for Dancing.
Tell me about that.
I think I was sort of a bit of an impasse. With the shape thing, which kind of leads into the Boots for Dancing thing. So we were signed to Sire with Seymour Stein at the helm, and Seymour all of a sudden got interested in the Pretenders, and I think he was quite keen on art. So, like, sometimes rather than invest some money in one of his bands, he got fancy that painting.
Oh, right,
and a few grams of chili. Or something like that. So we don't. But he got really interested in the Pretenders. So I think we were just kind of pretty much brushed aside. But we kind of kept on going. And for a while, you remember Troy, Troy Tate went on to join Teardrop Explodes.
Yeah.
So we used to kind of employ Troy as and when, he was like the fourth member, quite crucial to the thing, really. It made up the chemistry and made up the numbers. Troy's character, really. So we couldn't really afford to, pay Troy's expenses. I mean, that's probably about all we did was. What was probably all we could afford to pay his expenses to come up and down and to Edinburgh, and he'd sleep on someone's couch. The way you did it in those days. Rough and ready, and, all in the spirit of the times. So we kind of struggled on for a while, but so he just kind of fizzled out. We never really split up or broke up or anything like that. It just fizzled out,
right.
Leaving, debts. I think Bob footed some of them, and I footed the rest, I think. So,
right.
About $4,000 in debt. So what's that in today's money? About 15 grand.
It's more
like that.
Really. So right, let's move on because we're of time. Let's move on to the league. Basically, it came through Bob, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, yeah, and because I was getting to know you guys. We'd all come up to Edinburgh.
Yeah.
Down in Sheffield, we'd all sort of hang out and stuff like that.
That's right.
And Adrian would keep going on about I want to write this song called The Blob, about the film The Blob starring Steve McQueen. So Bob had obviously been engineering things behind the scenes, being the Svengali, which I was like naively unaware of. But I just remember sort of getting together with Adrian and writing this sort of novelty song about the Blob. With him on a Porter studio up here in Edinburgh. And then, but I just started coming up and down to Sheffield to sort of work writing with them. And I remember on one of the first visits, you gave me a rundown of the basics of working
with synthesis,
working with synthesis.
I remember.
Which I thank you for eternally, because the way you explain it, and you showed me, the Play in a Day, the Burt Wheaton book, was the Bible of guitar players, how we all learned to play. And you knew the keyboard version of that. So you pointed out this book. I think I've still got it somewhere. And it gave you all the, the block chords for C, A, all the chord things. And, so that was quite invaluable. Thank you for that, Martyn.
Yeah. It's all right. I like to think in some small way that I contributed to the success of Dare.
Yeah, no, but it gave you a lot. Just presenting with a synthesizer. If you're a guitarist, you'd have just been like pushing buttons to not knowing what really did what. But
so originally, for the listeners, I've got to inform them that Jo obviously is a great songwriter, but he's predominantly a guitarist. So when you get brought into the new Human League situation, you were just given the job of being one of the co-writer and keyboard player. Really.
Well, yeah, effectively, yeah.
Because you weren't allowed to play guitar, is that right?
Initially.
Not
but that was fine by me. I mean, I was getting a bit jaded, at that point. The Blues for Dancing thing had been great. That was really great fun. Very much local band thing. Yeah. And we were about to get an NME cover feature, and the guys, one or two of the guys, well, Dave, the singer, they didn't really want to. I don't think they had the bottle to go the next level.
Right.
So between Bob and myself, we got Boots for Dancing sort of off the ground, and then they just decided they'd rather turn back and land on the deck of the aircraft carrier, so to speak. Yeah. It was, but for that, I probably wouldn't have ended up joining the Human League. And
exactly.
Boots for Dancing probably would have been one of them, NME cover feature bands for a week, and then, like Shed 7 and all these bands you got huge for a week, and then the NME move on to someone else. So it could have just been one of them sort of things.
Yeah. So tell me about the working process at that time of the league, because obviously we were making Penthouse and Pavement at the time.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, a week in, a week out, wasn't it?
Sometimes it was daytime and nighttime. We count nights and you do days or whatever.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah, I used to come down every alternate week, didn't I think? Yeah.
Yes. And so tell us about, what the kind of songwriting process would involve at that point. How did it get started? Who started them?
Well, I'm just trying to think what I've got. Fucking
no, all right. Let's tell you about Don't You Want Me.
Oh, Don't You Want Me was Adrian fiddling about with a synthesizer, like he's fiddling about with the little Roland sequencer, the modular sequencer.
Oh, right, yeah.
And he's got some ludicrous thing going on there. This little, I don't know, it sounded like sort of a bizarre radio signal or something. Right. Some other science fiction film or something. And I'm sort of listening to that, wondering what the fuck's he doing. And I sort of managed to get some of the fundamental notes out of that as a sort of a riff, by sort of slowing it all down in my head, and working out. But Adrian's version was. Because I thought, I was going to all these new romantic clubs and things like that, and they were playing like Coty Mundi, King Creole, the Coconut, and all that stuff. So I thought, well, could get something with a bit of a Latin feel in there, but a bit syncopated. So that sort of set the ball rolling. And I think, then we probably just have, because we used to use that Roland modular thing just to get, and it's take all night just to get a drum pattern in time, with the that sequencer figuring a synth that was set up for a bass drum sound.
That's right, yeah.
Something else, so you get the really haphazard. But so you get that as best as you could, and I think I would just start jamming along on the Juno 4, was it?
Juno 106, was it? At that time?
It was prior to that, but it was the only.
So Jupiter 4, you mean?
Well, it might have been Jupiter 4. Yeah, Jupiter 4, and it was sort of polyphonic and had some quite nice.
Yeah, Jupiter 4. I've still got one. In fact, look.
Oh, it's a great bit kit. That. Yeah.
There you go. There it is. And the System 100.
Oh yeah. Is this all different kit, or is that? That is the very. Not only is that the very stuff, but it's also laid out almost.
It
was in the old Lex place in Sheffield. Yeah.
No, actually,
that's not the original stuff.
No. Vince Clarke bought me that for Christmas one year.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah. Well, not Jupiter 4 actually. That's on loan from a friend of mine in Dublin. But
Well, I love the Jupiter 4 because that would have been the one that you showed me. Here's the ADSR.
That was it. Yeah, it's still my favorite synth, by the way. The Jupiter.
Oh, I loved it. Well, what I loved about it was you could just get a preset, adjust it a little bit, and you could just be off and running. So instead of fucking about all day trying to get a sound, you just got on with trying to write a song.
Yeah, and they went back to fucking around all day.
Oh, yeah. It just take long till you're fucking about the sound. Not writing the song, but initially, it was like you would do at home. You just pick up your guitar and start strumming until you kind of came up with something.
Exactly.
So,
and then when you got like the kind of backing track done, Phil would take and do the top line and do the lyrics, or would Phil head or what?
Phil came. I remember Phil coming in. We had this started, I think, because myself and Adrian would go in at night, I think, and Phil and Ian would go in during the day.
Right.
So we sort of did it in. Well, for a lot of it, we did it in shifts like that. Then it would more kind of cross over a bit. Yeah. And I remember Phil coming in with his big full scat book full of lyrics, and he had. It was kind of more or less the bridge section of the song. He had a kind of vocal. He had some lyrics and a melody for that bit, which married up quite nicely with what I'd got so far. So I kind of just worked out a chord progression for his melody and lyrics. And yeah, it all kind of, so we had part of the lyrics, I think, no chorus yet. But where the chorus would be,
Yeah, well, so how did the chorus come about? Because it is one of the great pop choruses.
I know, yeah, that. Yes, we had this kind of gap where there would obviously be a chorus, and we'd actually recorded pretty much the entire backing track in Genetic. We sat and worked through the arrangement with Martyn, which we'd do on a guitar. Martyn had this old Ovation guitar. And we'd all sit around the desk in a sort of semicircle on stools and chairs. And right, Joe, there you go. Give me the right-handed. I'm left-handed, as you know, Martyn. Yeah. So I'd be upside down playing the root chords, on the Ovation guitar, and Martyn would be kind of directing the structure of the song. So yeah, then we had the thing programmed up, all the parts laid down. Which was interesting in itself. But that was the first time I got to use the guitar, actually, because we were triggering the Big System 800.
Excellent.
So a part that was programmed in, but the guitar was sort of triggering a gate. So it wasn't really... So it was just the strumming action, really, that was... that
the beat on
it sort of opens up with. So it's a synth programmed up from the MC4 that's doing it.
And that's a good...
And I'm just triggering the rhythm of it. That's all I'm doing. But it was great. Guitar on a Human League record, stealthily. But, so we had the backing track, and then Martyn was forever badgering Phil to come up with lyrics, when they went back to Sheffield for the weekend. When you come back, Phil, have some bloody lyrics. That kind of thing. So I remember Phil, the next time we met up at Genetic, and remember we're standing in the doorway. I remember it clearly. We were standing in the doorway going into the live room, and Phil's got his bits of paper out. He's going, Joe, I've got this idea for the chorus, right? And we didn't have a title for it. Me and Dave Allen used to play with Dave Allen, who was the engineer.
Yeah.
And we just sit there singing along to this backing track, and we'd sing, I'm a cunt. You're a cunt. We're all cunts. Yeah. So that was the lyrics at first. Me and Dave.
Great. Well, nobody's going to mention anything else about this podcast about Front Poem. That's all is going to be.
I did not say the C word, ladies. I know it offends some of you. But I remember Phil standing in the doorway of the live room. Phil's got his bits of paper out. He's going, right, what do you think about this for the chorus, Joe? And he's going, don't you want me, baby? Don't you want me? Oh. I honestly thought he was taking the piss at first. I thought, you're winding me up, mate. You're having a laugh. But then as that sunk in, I thought, That's so simple and direct. It's fucking brilliant. But at first, just about I was about to burst out laughing, I actually thought, no, hang on a minute. There's a simple pop thing going on there. It's a very straightforward pop thing, yeah.
Let me tell you a story about the early.
Amazing, Max Bygrave's one.
Let me tell you a story. We weren't allowed to use the word love in the first version of the Human League. So this was probably Phil coming out of the closet a bit about using love.
That never occurred to me like now, but now I think about it.
Yeah, that would have been the first Human League song that directly addressed it. And that's so Phil. He's gone from, we are never going to use that word, to, here's one of the most famous, kind of titles for a pop song ever.
Exactly. Yeah, who's going to forget that? Incidentally, just as a little aside, I just remembered in Shape, we never did it live, but we rehearsed a rock version of Path of Least Resistance.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'd love to have heard that. If you've got a tape of it, I want to hear it.
Somewhere, it's on a really bad rehearsal cassette, because we used to record our rehearsals on a cassette. So I've got it somewhere, yeah.
Try and dig it out. I'd love to hear that.
I'll look out for it one day.
So, for the podcast listeners, I just want to inform you, so to save you looking it all up, and so Joe can have a fag.
Absolutely. My only remaining.
You're your remaining. Joe was involved in writing on Dare. He was involved in writing "Open Your Heart," "Darkness," "Seconds," "Do You Want Me," "Hard Times," and "Non-Stop." And that's not a bad swathe of that album, I'd say.
Yeah.
That must be your pension fund, I presume. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's what I like to think of as your after you'll have been through all the same shit with meetings with accountants and financial advisors. I can't think of the word now, but it's like your assets.
Yeah.
It's like it's your tradable commodity.
Yeah, that's right. And
that's what it becomes. And you're sort of part horrified and part pleased with yourself when you kind of realize that. Yeah. I think I came out of a meeting that I had with Bob one day, and it sort of dawned on me that catalogue is like a tradable commodity.
Oh, it definitely is.
That's the first time it kind of occurred to me. Yeah.
Well, there are some people around now. A friend of mine called Mercuradis, who runs a thing called Hypnosis, and they.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, they buy people's IP. They're a publishing catalogue, and they pay you up front for it, and then they take. It's like. They take your whatever proportion of your earnings that you decide to give them.
Yeah.
But you can monetize it up front. So I don't know if you ever need.
Well, I did something. I did via another sort of manager. It was quite good at doing deals, but not very good at following them up. I did a sort of he got it was called a futures deal at the time.
It's
25. Or so years ago. So I did a life of copyright deal with Ministry of Sound for my entire catalogue, which had been on Warner Brothers at the time.
Right.
Yeah. So here, Bob. But you remember Bob had Sound Diagrams.
That's right. Yeah.
So I was signed to Bob. He was licensed. He licensed to Warner Brothers to do all the admin.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers weren't working the catalogue at all. They weren't exploiting it
or anything. Yeah.
And I think once the term of that ran out, we did this what was called a futures deal, where I gave like life of copyright to, at the time it was Ministry of Sound, for the catalogue. So I'm still accounted to for royalties and things like that, but I can't do other deals obviously on my on my publishing. It's all technically owned by
That's right. But you got some money up front. You got some money up front.
Oh yeah, which the tax man took a fucking hefty share and all that.
Well, I always say about tax, if you're earning money enough to be paying the top rate of tax, then you must be earning plenty of money, you know. So I don't...
Yeah. But you know, with hindsight, it would have been better to get the. I mean, you know, I was managing okay. It wasn't like I was desperately needed. You know, I was managing okay. But you know, with hindsight, it would have been better to have those paid in installments.
Yeah.
I can't remember then if the 60%
I'll
tax
tell you what you'd say
still existed. Yeah. So I'd have been better getting that in more manageable installments. You know, so much a year over 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, of course. No, you're right.
But,
your financial advisor, give him a good kick in. He should.
Yeah. I might not have had a financial advisor at that time.
That's the problem, right?
I think that came a bit later. The guy I've got now is actually really
anyway,
good.
back to the music. So then you co-wrote a load of stuff on Hysteria, the second new Humour League album. I just want to run through that as well. So you did I Love You Too Much, Louise, The Lebanon, The Sign, Life on Your Own, Don't You Know I Want You.
I Want You, yeah. I think that was the only one I wrote with Ian. Don't you want you know I want.
But so the recording of Hysteria, tell us about that period with the League, because that was a point of stress.
Fucking painful. Oh yeah.
I want podcast listeners. I want to tell you, I'm not encouraging him to go down this route. I'm not winding him up. Carry on, but do please carry on.
Well, let's just say at that point, I'd rather have been in Def Leppard doing their Hysteria.
For what? Why was it so painful?
I think it was the thing. I think it was the fall. You know, I think it was the second album, Panic. Because I think everyone's expectation, certainly in the group, of what became Dare, was that, you know, it would do probably about as well, maybe a little bit better than Travel. You know? Yeah. We might get into the hundreds of thousands of sales.
Yeah, of course.
So I don't think anyone was really prepared for it to kind of go stratospheric the way it did. So, you know, we still had, I think, that very much kind of independent mentality and, you know, integrity and all that. So, yeah, that was probably a bigger surprise to us when what happened with Dare than anybody else. Yeah. We didn't even think "Don't You Want Me" would have been any good for a single. You know, we didn't even see it as a single. Mm-hmm. I think, you know, the record companies and other people kind of saw that. And when we started, obviously after that we recorded Mirror Man and Fascination.
By the way, I think
we did quite well.
Mirror Man and Fascination
would have been on a second album.
Yeah, Mirror Man and Fascination are great songs, by the way. I think.
Oh yeah, Fascination is one of my favourite. That and Seconds, I think, are my sort of favourites out of the ones I've done. Phil was doing some great stuff as well. He did a song called Gold, which only appeared on a B-side. He did it all himself.
Wow.
I thought it was brilliant. And he just ended up as a B-side. But we started recording what would become Hysteria, still with Martin Russian.
Yeah. And
that was going quite nicely. You know, we had about half a dozen tracks either recorded or, you know, getting there.
Yeah.
That relationship kind of fell apart, really. I think Martin wanted more credit. I mean, you never really knew what was going on behind the scenes. You know, Phil would be quite secretive about a certain amount of things. So I was kind of out of the loop of a lot of what was going on. But that relationship, unfortunately, began to fall apart. And twice I managed to patch it up. I put a lot of effort into trying to keep that together, actually, as I recall. I remember, you know, going for a drink with Martin and persuading him to, like, stick with it. And it'd last for a couple of weeks, then it'd fall apart. You know, it was like a couple breaking up, you know. Get back together for a couple of weeks, then the same problems rear their heads, and then you make up and get back for another week or two. And so you know, it's unfortunate because we were getting on really well with the recording of it, and I was quite happy with how the tunes were starting to sound, and we were using like the Roland. Ian was starting to use the we had the Roland synth.
I love that machine. I love that.
And the
G7. Yeah.
I can't remember.
GR7, that's it, yeah.
Was it GR7? The little blue box that went on the floor.
Yeah.
It wasn't that great, but it was
The tracking was a bit slow, wasn't it? But
all sorts of issues. But you got round them.
Yeah.
Like to record the riff on Fascination, to stop all the guitar strings, all the open guitar strings vibrating in sympathy with what you're playing on a couple of high strings. We had to muffle them with toilet paper.
We used to do all that stuff as well.
Yeah. And then you sample bits, because we just started sampling. We had those AMS, Martyn had those AMS samplers. So between two of them, you could get a 2 seconds loop.
2 seconds. Yeah.
But that was going great. And that all kind of fell apart. And so, I think a mini album came out of that, didn't it?
Yeah.
It was just for export, which is kind of, I don't know, a bit of a blank round, really, in a lot of respects. But, Fascination and Mirrorman did quite well. And they would have been leading tracks on what would have been Hysteria.
Yeah.
And so it would have had some strong singles on it, had we completed it with Martyn.
Right.
But, yeah, it would, I mean, if everyone could have just gritted their teeth and seen that through.
Yeah. I think wasn't Martyn having some? I think I remember Bob mentioned that.
Oh, he was having marital difficulties as well. Yeah. That was pretty horrendous.
I think. I mean, being
was that a bit later on? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Yeah, it was probably around about that time.
Yeah, being in the studio 12 hours a day, 6 days a week isn't very good marriage. I can confirm that.
No, that was a shame. Yeah, he was pretty. Yeah, that probably factored into that. I mean, that was probably going on, but we didn't know about it until I think a bit later on it became more evident. But yeah, Martyn probably had all that going on, so his head was probably like.
So you eventually, despite being the Kissinger of the group, and being the diplomat and the most kind of amenable person, the glue. You must have got to the point where
the glue that failed.
Yeah. Unfortunately. The glue that dissolved.
The glue that didn't hold. Yeah.
When did you dissolve yourself from the group? Then.
Well, I just have to. The pros. I sort of think, with hindsight, the thing with the mentality that we should have had with the follow up to the Dare, if you like, should have just been get an album out as quick as possible, capitalize on their success. It'll probably get slated by the reviews, but it will do well. It's still on the it's still catching that way.
Yeah, you're keeping the ball rolling.
And then go for your next masterpiece after that.
Yeah.
But then that whole mentality of we've got to do an album and it's got to be better than Dare, and people weren't making decisions on the songs themselves. So they ended up sounding, a lot of them, a bit like demos. I felt, but a lot of them ended up sounding a bit unfinished. Apart from things like, I was always pleased with the Lebanon, because Chris Thomas, who was producing us then, I had a little demo of it, of the backing track, which I'd done at home, on Fort Studio, and Chris was really excited about that, and he couldn't wait to start doing the Lebanon. So there was a real vision for that track. Chris was brilliant, but he just had all these ideas for it, and we coalesced all that, and it turned. That for me turned out, not blowing my own trumpet, but for me it's the most complete track on the album.
Yeah, I think it's really.
It's got a vision. It's got a distinct sound. It knows where it's going. And it's great. I mean, I've played it actually live on a few occasions, with various little kind of one-off band things. I played with a tribute band, an 80s tribute band. I played it with them one night. These guys and
really
tribute band. Yeah, they used to do a few Humour League songs as well, and it's great to play. To play the guitar bits. It's great. Yeah.
Tremendous. Okay, so moving on to obviously you left the band, and then you briefly joined them to write Harlike.
Yeah, well, I think I learned very, very quickly, don't burn your bridges.
Yeah.
So I've kind of tried to make a point of that in my life, is to never burn bridges. So I'd always said, I'm quite happy. I mean, I think the process just got too much for me.
Yeah.
And I ended up going to Australia and getting married.
Did you?
But each time I came back, and Hugh Padgham was now the producer of Hysteria. So it was so bitty and drawn out. And I think I just couldn't stand it anymore, I think.
Yeah.
With hindsight, perhaps I should have stuck it out, really. But
I don't know. I've always of the opinion that, in your career and life generally, you make an authentic decision at the time.
Well, you got
it's hard to second guess, isn't it? You can't.
Yeah, no, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And I suppose naively, I thought there might be more opportunities for me than there actually were, coming out the Humour League. But it was like nobody said I'd left, so it was like nobody thought I'd left the Humour League.
Right.
I realised that when you leave a band, it's up to you to make a big fucking deal about
make a big deal out of it.
I never knew. I just thought I'll get inundated with phone calls. Why did you leave the Humour League? But absolutely nothing. and then eventually, months later, someone had asked Phil in about, why did Joe leave, or has Joe left, or why did he leave? And Phil said, I think he had a headache or something.
Oh.
That was about it. I had a headache. Yeah.
I need to ask you a question. So if you were to put in the two main albums that you were involved with were the first two new ones, right? So Dare and Hysteria.
Hysteria, yeah.
Yeah, what if you were to put a kind of percentage? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to it. It's just a daft idea. If you were to put a percentage of what you, in terms of the songwriting, how much would you say you were responsible for the vibe of albums?
God, it's hard.
I know it's tough, but
it's hard to say. It's I think more than anything else, it's just what kind of would coalesce out. I mean, what I always loved about the Humour League was, the original Humour League as well, was the eclectic influences that were then manifested in sort of modern cutting edge modern electronic music. And I could hear all the glam rock. The glam rock was in there. The German the krautrock, the electro. Even prog rock. I was going to say, a bit of prog rock, and then the Jimmy Webb thing with that W thing, the gig tonight. I can never remember the lyrics. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. It was like a Jimmy Webb song.
Thanks, mate.
And I remember asking you. He's the fucking master, isn't he? And then I remember, I'm sure I asked you, or I asked somebody like, roof work going on. Those big riffs, like bow down down.
Yeah.
Down down. And I thought they must have worked them out on a guitar, and I can't remember whether it was you or I asked, or whether it was Phil. And I said, did you work out like Blind Faith and
like
that on the guitars? It sounds like they just sound like big guitar chords. And I think Phil or you, I can't remember now, just said, no, we just used the black notes on the keyboard. That's the only ones we could play, otherwise we get lost.
Also the Korg had two oscillators. It was
yes. You get that
the Korg, it had two oscillators, but you could tune them to fifths and stuff. So that's how.
Which is the Gary Glitter sound.
Exactly. I worked with Gary Glitter lately.
But so like I just thought there's this big sort of rock thing going on there as well.
Yeah, that's right.
That was a revelation. Yeah, there were all this eclecticism coalescing into this unified sound.
Yeah.
So I always kind of loved that. And then I think, I came in. Well, Ian came in actually before me and brought this little bit of reggae kind of influence in. And then I came in with all my bullshit.
Hardly
So,
bullshit, mate.
but I'm connecting with, like, I love the glam rock,
Yeah.
They were listening to Judas Priest, and I mean, that was
Not sure about that.
My introduction to Judas Priest really was via the Human League.
Well, the first gig that the Humour League did post us leaving,
Yeah.
they played a Judas Priest song, didn't they?
Oh, well, yeah, together we'll take on all the world. Yeah, I saw one of those gigs. Yeah. In fact, I think when we at the end of the day tour, we actually got a telegram. I think we played in Castle Donington somewhere, the big cowshed, a massive, great indoor marketplace, and we got a telegram from Judas Priest, like, wishing have a good gig, guys, that kind of thing, which is quite sweet, really. So they were sort of quite well aware, I think.
Okay, so let's move on to the present day. What are you up to now?
Oh, God, well, yeah, self-isolating and being locked down mostly. But no, I've been working, but I'm actually working with Ian again.
Are you?
Doing some work with Ian. Well, I started...
Ian Burden.
Kind of,
right.
Ian Burden, yeah, and Jimmy Ray. Remember Jimmy Ray?
Yeah.
Singer Jimmy Ray, who I'd worked with our a publishing company I was signed to at the time, 19, was like Jimmy's company as well, it was Simon Fuller, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Had 19. So they put me and Jimmy together, and I think we wrote about one song. Jimmy came up here, we wrote about one song, but we got on really well, really cracked on. And they sort of lost interest in Jimmy, because I thought Jimmy was quite a good singer. I thought it's a bit different. Someone doing the kind of boy band thing, but a bit rock and roll.
Yeah.
And when I met Jimmy, he was the real deal. He was totally into his rock and roll and rockabilly. He knew all about it. He looked cool, dressed the part. So there was always kind of unfinished business with Jimmy, I felt. So I'd been, when that, a couple of years ago, that League album came out in like a box set.
Yeah.
And it was various different...
A very British synthesizer band or whatever.
Something like that. And I thought when I heard about that coming out, I thought, oh, that would be quite interesting. It wasn't quite what I expected, because I thought they'd take maybe a load of unfinished stuff and finish it off. And I got to think, well, I've got all these unfinished things that I started doing with Phil, or, probably mostly with Phil, or the one that was like an outtake from Dare that never got finished. And, so I had all these bits and pieces of mostly finished backing tracks, some of which Phil had given titles to. So that it'd be nice to maybe get the best of those and finish them off, and some other older songs of mine that had only been in demo form, that were quite mixture of electronic and guitar, that kind of thing. Yeah. So we'd started re-recording those, and giving them a big
That's a good idea.
A friend of mine's got works. He runs a really great studio in a film studio complex here, just in Livingston, just outside of Edinburgh. So he gave me an amazing deal in his what would normally be £1,000 a day studio. He's letting me have it for a few £100 a time, So we started kind of working in there, and then Ian put out his solo album a few years back as well.
Right.
So I got a call from Ian's manager, Richard Hermitage. Would I kind of help out Ian on his album launch?
Right.
A little album launch in London. So I kind of went down and did that, and I sort of reconnected with Ian. I hadn't seen Ian for quite a long time. And I said to Ian, you fancy doing a bit of bass on what I've been recording? So kind of had Ian on board. And then I hooked up with Jimmy again. Jimmy was up here on a stag weekend with some of his pals. Ironically, one or two of them had actually been in the audience in the Lebanon video as well.
Right.
I was in the audience in the Lebanon. He did it in a theatre with a pretend like live situation, mind. So I've got Jimmy involved, and so that was all going quite well. And then we had this guy, a programmer who was in the band I mentioned before, the tribute band, Party Fears 3, they were called. So he was doing a lot of programming and stuff like that, but that didn't really work out. So we got so far with that, and it was going quite nicely. Then we had a lot of hiccups and folks. Graham, the engineer producer who had the studio, he got really ill. His mum was at death's door, so he was really ill and stressed out. So he was out the picture for a while, and then the studio had to move as well.
Yeah.
So it was like all these things happened right about the same time. So everything stalled, and then just as we're starting to tie the threads back together again, the fucking lockdown starts. So then we can do nothing. So Graham's been doing a few mixes. I'll send you some along, actually.
Would you?
Yeah.
Hear them. I'd really like them. I'll give you some feedback. I mean, that
was my plan, really. We'd we got about 4 tracks, 4 tracks finished. Graham's got mixes of 3 of them, and then we had another 2 with the backing tracks, sort of fairly well on the way. And it's kind of coming together quite nicely, and until all the spanner went in the works, the entire fucking
let's stop right to the works. I've had it talking about it, to be honest.
But oh god, yeah. But,
so let's move on to the daft part of the interview, which is
I like the daft.
Yeah, I do this for everybody, so it's like the kind of smash hits, your favorite things, right? So what's your favorite film? It could be any that you like.
As decided, the guy Ed Shipton, the guy called Ed that was in touch here.
Yeah, that's right.
He was one of Jimmy's pals that came up to that stag night with him.
Right, okay. Fair enough. We survived it then. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's your favorite film, or one of them?
Oh God, it's a tough one, but it's like films and records. I don't have a favourite.
No.
Got loads of favourites. But let's go with Where Eagles Dare.
Yeah, Where Eagles Dare.
Where Eagles Dare.
Let's the block. Not the block. Okay. Favourite book, or one of your favourite books?
Oh man.
I don't know if you're a big reader. I tend to read a lot of non-fiction.
Yes, I tend to do that. I did enjoy. Someone gave me this book once and said, because I like airships and retro technologies, and all that. Someone gave me this book and said, "Oh, you like this book? It's got airships in it." And when someone lends you a book or gives you a book, they keep asking you, "Have you read that book yet? What do you think of that book?" I'm gonna have to read this fucking book. And the book was The Golden Compass.
Oh, right, yeah.
And I'd started reading it and read the first chapter. I thought, well, this is like a fucking kid's book. But a chapter in and I was hooked.
Yeah.
And I went on to read, the whole 3.
Yeah.
And I've watched all the adaptations. TV and film. So I really got into that. I thought that was pretty brilliant.
Yeah, good.
And recently I watched that the reimagining of Brave New World.
Yeah,
And Grant Morrison, the comic writer, who's a friend of mine. I've done some work with him as well. He had musical, not pretensions. I did some songs. Some of his songs are recorded with him and played down. Grant was heavily involved in that, and that reminded me of how amazing how prophetic a book that was.
Telling me, yeah, absolutely genius. Okay, favorite TV show, old or new?
Oh God, I've been watching a lot of Callis lately.
Callis,
absolutely fantastic.
Edward Woodward,
Edward Woodward, yeah. A lot of Callis.
I don't know what I do, but I know what Edward Woodward would.
Yeah, Edward Woodward would, yeah.
All that.
There's been a lot of rubbish, but a lot of pretty good stuff.
I think the Wicker Man is his peak. Edward Woodward.
Oh right, yes, of course. Yeah,
he was the main character.
I did watch Break and Rant as well fairly recently.
Yeah. Okay, so next is an epiphanal moment, kind of a moment that changed the direction of your life.
Oh God.
I know that's a tough one, but it's an interesting one. I mean, and then naturally a moment. It could be just like a flashbulb moment of inspiration or realization.
God.
We can come back to that.
I think perhaps when I decided I wanted to do something, I said earlier, I was, around the shape blues dancing period, I started to get a bit jaded with the guitar, and I thought, I want to learn something new here.
Yeah.
I didn't want to ditch the guitar, as it were, but I just thought I need to learn a new instrument or come at things, perhaps from the songwriting perspective, because it would do all my writing on the guitar, to come at it from a different angle.
Exactly.
I thought maybe I should take up the saxophone or something like that. But
I mean, they're synthesizers. I mean, the same thing happens.
Well, yeah, but
human,
Although I didn't realize it at the time, it was like, getting involved with the Human League. That was that. That was that thing,
Exactly.
And that day I spent with you, you showed me the basics and going through the ropes, and we went to the music shop. I bought that chord book and all that. that was quite a big move in a way.
Oh, thank you.
A lot of things fell into place, I suppose. So quite instrumental there, Martyn, yourself. Yeah,
thank you. Other musical artist or composer?
Well, he just mentioned the aforementioned Jimmy Webb.
Yeah, gotta be.
I love Empire of the Sun at the moment. They're one of my favorite bands.
Very good.
Still love me glam rock. The last gig I went to before we weren't allowed to go anywhere. I went to see The Sweet in Edinburgh.
Oh my God!
And they were there's only Andy, the guitar player, and they were absolutely brilliant, right? Absolutely fantastic. In fact, two of the best gigs I saw that year. One was The Sweet, and prior to that, a few weeks prior to that, I went to see the Human League in Glasgow.
Did you?
And their show was almost surreal.
But their productions are pretty.
Oh, it's yeah. I mean, it's almost like you're in an alternate dimension.
Yeah, no.
Now that show's just gone.
That's right.
I've seen about 3 or 4 incarnations of the Human League live show, and it goes from strength to strength. So I was quite sort of blown away by that. And then seeing The Sweet so that's a good memory before the lockdown. 2 of the best gigs I've seen in years.
Okay, your favourite synth?
Now I'm still a big fan of the Juno 106.
Yeah.
And I like my little monitor, the SH101, the SH.
Yeah,
I just got one of them a couple of years ago now. In fact, it seems recent, but I got one of those little Roland boutique things.
Oh yeah, the
series. I got their SH101.
I'm sponsored by Roland, and they give me access to their Roland Cloud, which is all their virtual synths.
Oh, right.
If you're interested, I can introduce you.
Well, I'd love to get their. Oh, yeah, that'd be brilliant. I mean, I'd love to get their little. They do a 106 module as well, don't they? I've got the little keyboard thing.
Yeah, but the thing is, for Cloud, they'll give freely to anybody who's got some kind of profile, because it's no skin off their nose, is it?
All right. Yeah.
And it's like all their virtual synths, all of them. Anyway, I'll put you in contact after this.
Yeah, but Juno 106 to me takes a lot of beating.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. And finally, an ambition unfulfilled.
Oh God. Don't know. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Don't hold your breath. I'm not holding my breath. Actually, Erasure got into that, didn't they?
Did they?
Yeah, my mate Erasure got into it.
Well, the thing I always remember most about watching that on TV is the Notorious Blondie one, where the ex-members did embarrass themselves a bit, I think. But you always think of that, but I can't think unfulfilled. Well, I think just to have done better than what you did, really.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want to do things. Maybe sometimes people go, well, like for me, mine is to do a feature film soundtrack, which I've never.
Oh yeah, I've done a bit of TV like that, but Yeah, something like that.
I love working to picture.
I think I'll be out of my depths though, you know, with how it all is now. You know.
No, you.
So it's really.
Somebody else can do.
You'd know what you were doing.
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
No, you'd know. You pick it up in no time. Listen, Joe, we've rattled on for ages.
Yeah.
But it's good.
But once you get me going, you know.
It's really good. It's really good to catch up with you, and that's
likewise. Let's stay in touch, Martin.
Yeah, one of the great benefits of doing this podcast is getting back in touch with people who I love and respect. You know, so
likewise.
Yes, that's it. So this will be coming out in the next month or so. So I'll keep you informed. And
yeah. And it's just online. I mean, I've never really done the podcast.
I'll send you a link, and you can listen to it on
get it on your computer or iPad. Yeah, I'll definitely listen out to that. Yeah,
brilliant, man. Lovely to see you.
You too, Martin.
And I hope to see you soon.
I'll send you some of these tracks as well. One of them is a reworked Humour League song called "Get It Right" that I did with Jesse Ray. You remember Jesse Ray?
Yeah.
So I wrote that with him. So I reworked that, and the couple of other songs there, a couple of other mixes of a couple of different songs that you won't be familiar with.
All right.
But yeah, I'll send you those along.
And I'll introduce you to Roland.
Yeah.
All right, man. Lots of love.
Fabulous.
And I'll see you soon. Cool,
right. Okay, Martin. All the best.
Bye.
Best.